Hi, I'm Arthur Moats, and I'm here to talk to you about my book, The Moats Theory of Life, and the amazing holiday deal we have going on right now. If you purchase a hardback book, you will receive a paperback copy half off as part of our holiday bundle. This book makes for a great gift for yourself or others and will leave you feeling inspired and impactful. So go to moatstheory.com right now and get your copy so you can start living a more fulfilled life. What's up? It's the Arthur Moats Experience with Deke. I'm Arthur Moats, and that's my main man, Deke.
What's up, man?
Come on, baby. We in the land of the living, and it is another episode that is brought to you by DRAFTKINGS Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook and app. Deke, let me tell you about this place, man. Not only is it safe, but it is secure and reliable, and for all those first-time users. We all were first-time users. We all had that first time, right? But for all those people that had that first time, you can receive up to $1,000 in deposit bonus money if you simply use the promo code MOATS. So, Deke, let's act like this isn't our first time. Be smart, use the promo code, and get an opportunity to make a little money. But we also had an opportunity to watch some Pittsburgh sports last night as well, baby. And I was a little bit excited. I'm not going to lie. I think we both were excited. And then that excitement kind of went away a little bit. It was very fitting for Pittsburgh right now. What we're talking about was yesterday was the start of the 2021 NHL season, and the Pittsburgh Penguins were the first game of the season, opening night. They had the first game, the 5:30 matchup against, their cross-state rivals, the Philadelphia Flyers, and obviously they dropped it 6-3. But man, initially I was excited, man. I was hyped up. They had the storylines going. I mean, and funny thing was very similar storylines to them as the Steelers in terms of, all right, does this core group, is it time to move on from them? Has their window officially left? Is it a coaching issue as well? I mean, there's a lot of questions surrounding them. And then obviously they brought a large majority of those guys back this year. And then that first game happened. And sure enough, in true Pittsburgh fan fashion, I went to Twitter and I said, oh yeah, this is full carryover from the Steelers right here, man. They already jumped ship. Condensed season, 56 games. They said, oh Lord, it's over. It's over. We done lost the first one. It's done. I was like, man, this is what happens though when the Steelers do bad, man. When the Steelers don't live up to the expectation, it carries over. It definitely does, man.
Well, my excitement for this is weird because...
And shout out to the hat, too. I peep you pulling up.
Yeah. I grabbed a couple new hats yesterday. I got some new pirate ones, so you'll see those on the show a couple times coming up here. But yeah, and I saw this. I'm like, damn, this is kind of nice. This is kind of nice.
It's clean.
I really don't watch the Pens. And this is why my excitement was weird, because I was like, hey, you know what? Let's watch this. Let's see what happens. Because I remember last year... Mm-hmm. I think the only Penguin game I watched was it game 4 or 5 where they lost out of the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And just over the course of the last maybe 6-7 years, I've barely watched any hockey. Maybe some of the playoffs, maybe some of those Stanley Cup runs. But outside of that, really nothing. So I'm like, all right, first game, maybe I'll watch. Maybe I'll get into it. I just bought the hat. So we'll see. So I started watching it, and things are going good. For the most part. I mean, it's a close game. Then, then we go up 3-2, and then it was just a disaster after that. And what's interesting, though, is I did only watch that one game last year. It was the last game. And I remember us talking about it beforehand and afterwards, because before we were almost previewing the game, and I was asking you a lot of questions.
Yes.
And you were like, oh, man, they're really rough on defense. Their goalie's been like in and out.
Special teams has been inconsistent as well in terms of their power plays, whether they have the advantage on the power play or if they are, the shorthanded party. Their special teams has struggled these past couple of years. And I mean, you look at the first 2 goals that they allowed, it was off of those plays as well. So those issues have still carried over. And then also with the goalie play with Tristan Jarry, obviously this offseason, the big decision making was going to be between Jarry and Matt Murray, right? Matt Murray obviously won a Stanley Cup here, but he had a similar scenario where he came in for Andre Fleury, right? And took over for him.
And went off.
Yeah, and he did. But then it caught up to him where Jarry was coming in and taking over for Murray. So this offseason, they made the decision. They allowed Murray to leave. Obviously, he signed with the Senators. And now from there, Jarry was the guy going forward. Now, I still wasn't 100% backing that decision because to me, when I see a guy that
just less money, probably,
right.
huh? Is that what it is?
And the thing was this: not only from a money standpoint, but when I just think of the offseason, right? Their offseason was very, very short, similar to NBA in terms of they pretty much finished a month ago and they're already back. So less than a month ago, right? You weren't confident in Jarry being your goalie in the playoffs. They want Matt Murray during the playoffs. So to see them complete 180 and say, okay, Jarry, even though you were an all-star last year, you played really well in the first half of the season. The second half, he struggled, was inconsistent, which is why they kept going back and forth with him and Murray, and neither one of them could put together a span of successful games. It looked like Murray was going to be a little bit better, but then that faltered come playoff times. So when I think about all that, for them to have made the decision that, hey, now you're definitely the guy 100%, I'm not completely confident in that. Now, granted, yesterday, the goals that he did allow, they weren't all his fault, right? Obviously,
some of them were bad.
Some of them were bad. But to me, I'm like, just because your defensemen might not have done their job, I look at it as the equivalent of Minkah Fitzpatrick at safety, right? Just because this linebacker missed a tackle, yes, it's hard for you to make a one-on-one open field tackle. But it's not against the rules for you to make a one-on-one open field tackle. In fact, you've done it so much that we expect you to make those tackles, right? We're not saying that you're going to make it every time, but I at least expect you to make it more times than not.
That's a good comparison. He was in bad spots, but it was like, man, you could have really saved that. You could have made
that, right? And to me, that was the biggest issue when I was watching it yesterday. I'm like, the defense, it's still a little questionable, obviously dating back to last year. We expected that. But some of the goals that he allowed, that to me was the alarming part. And you don't have the luxury of alternating him and Murray anymore. You have to ride with him now. So that was my biggest issue with it. Now, I know some people are going to also ask if Sullivan is still the guy, right? Because we've seen them in the past, 10 years make the switch mid-season before twice now. So this could be another scenario where they could look to do something like that if this were to continue. Because not saying that Sullivan isn't a good coach, but we always hear them talk about, man, has the team, grown tired of his leadership?
Lost the locker room.
Right. Can he still connect with those guys? I feel like football, when we say lost the locker room, it always has a negative connotation. Whereas with hockey, they just say the guys aren't really listening to him anymore.
And from some of the intel I was gathering for this too, some of the people that I know that watch hockey a lot more than me these days, they were saying there's just the turnover with coaches in hockey. That's almost like a normal thing.
Yeah, correct.
If he gets fired midseason, it's almost like
it's
expected.
Normal. Yeah.
Sure, maybe this is our best chance to win.
But we saw it work with obviously work with Sullivan, and then what was it, Bousman before it worked with him,
Terry, and Whenever they brought in Bousman,
they've done it 2 times already, and now they're looking at potentially this could happen again. So yeah, man.
Well, that was the weird thing, man. Whenever I was watching that game, I was so surprised with all the stuff you were saying that was going wrong with the Penguins because I hadn't watched in how long and stuff. We have Crosby, Malkin, we have like a lot of good names on offense. I'm like, there's no way we're gonna lose this series against Montreal,
bro.
And then I watched the game. I'm like, wow, they completely got dominated. They didn't deserve to win that. And then watching this game, I saw some of the same issues pop up. Man. And I think that's what a lot of people have been frustrated or are frustrated just based off this one game, and probably why everyone's going off. It's like nothing's really changed, I guess.
And like you said, because in Pittsburgh, we know not only are we diehard Steelers fans, but a lot of people are diehard Pens fans as well. You can't go from bad Steelers to now it looks like you're going to have bad Pens initially. Yeah, people are ready to lose their mind right here because they're too talented, man. When you talk about these names that we just listed off, they have more than enough talent to compete.
It doesn't seem like the offense will be the issue.
Correct. I mean, it shouldn't be, but just like in football, it's you have to be good in all phases. You have to have guys that can come in here and do what they're supposed to do, whether they're scoring, whether they're defensemen, whether they're goalies, whatever it is. You got to make sure that you come in here and do your job, and not just the first line, the second line and third line as well. So that's what we're trying to see right now from the Pens. But the beauty of the NHL is this. We don't have to wait a week to see if they can get it right.
Tomorrow, right?
We got action tomorrow. You know what?
They're doing it. Aren't they doing it different this time? So, are they doing like 1-in-1 series?
Yeah, so from my understanding, it's going to be a lot of the 1-in-1s and shorter series because remember, it's only 56 games compared to the traditional 82. And then they also did a division realignment as well. So you're not going to have your same leagues of Metropolitan, Eastern, and all these other things. It's literally, I want to say it's Eastern, and I think it's, what do they call it? Oh, my goodness. I'm drawing a blank on the name, but it's not just your traditional like Western, but it's like the Canadian League where literally all the Canadian teams are in one side of it as well. So it's different. It's different in terms of how they're doing it, but obviously it's in reaction to COVID and things like that, trying to just figure out the best way to go about doing this, because now bubbles and hub cities is a little bit different when you're talking about 56 games or you're talking about a full season and things like that. But it's gonna be interesting to follow, man.
Is Fleury still in the league?
Yeah, man. He's out in
Is he still in
Vegas? Yeah. And they're actually one of the they actually have Vegas has them with the best odds to win the Stanley Cup this year as well, man.
Wow. I was going to say, Penn's hot topic.
Yeah.
Trade for Fleury back. The return.
Oh, the return?
Well, dude, that's not going to happen if they're one of the top teams and
Absolutely,
they're favored to win the Cup. There's no way they would get Fleury up because he's been playing good, right?
No, he has, man. He definitely has.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's just disappointing, dude.
It happens like that.
What's the over-under on how many games I watched throughout the season? There's 50-something.
Oh, man.
Will I keep this up? Because the Pirates, I completely failed.
Yeah.
Penguins, Penguins last year, I didn't make any proclamations that I was going to watch the Penguins. All I did was watch the last game.
This it's 56 games. I'll set the over under at 15.
15? Wow, that might be too high, honestly.
And that's why I was gonna say under.
I think 6 is probably a good number.
Because like for me, like I already told you, like I'm watching. I have to watch these because the other radio shows I do is more than just Steelers. They want to talk hockey. They want to talk Pirates. So I have to know these things. But yeah, for you, I'll give you a strong 15. And that's like 15, but you got to think these are going to be some of the premier matchups. Like yesterday was big because it was the opening game, right? It was, you get those feelings of, man, it's the first one. You saw the pomp and circumstance before the game as well. Oh man, even the referee was speaking before the puck drop. I'm like, when does the referee talk before a puck drop? I've never seen this. All right, gentlemen, starting the 2021 season, make sure everybody's good. Long live America. I love you. Be great. All right, now let's play. I'm like, man, I've never heard a referee talk before like this. What is going on? Is this Ed Hockey League? What's going on here? But because it's open at night, it was a big deal. So obviously, whenever they do have other big matches, we're going to talk about this a lot more, man. Because in Pittsburgh, man,
I was going to say, I'll tune. Like if that's what people want to hear, I'm going to tune in. I'll tune in. And that's the thing,
man. Y'all let us know, man. If y'all want to hear more Pens talk, we could definitely do this because, like I said, we are aware of it. We're tuned in, baby, and we're passionate. I should have brought my Sid the Kid gear down here, man. I told you, man. I got one hockey jersey that's framed up, and it's his, man.
Yeah.
And then I actually own one hockey jersey, and it's his as well.
That's
so
good.
That's
good
my
stuff.
guy, man. But speaking of,
I guess we'll see Friday then. We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see if the bounce back happens.
Hey, man, it's all good. We'll clap them on Friday. No, too soon.
Well, I was definitely gonna bring that up.
Can we clap them on Friday? It's all good. They could get clapped in. I ain't worried about it, bro. I know they beat us 6-3, but it's coming on Friday.
But at least you're playing the same team. Like you get another chance. You're speaking on the behalf of other teams now. Right. You know what I mean?
You can't even go ahead and do it. What did Chris Brown say? It's hard to hate from outside the club. You can't even get in. You gonna hate from outside the club. You can't even stay in the playoff, baby. How you gonna? I understand. You know what? We talked about this before as well with Juju. Taken out of context? Was it taken out of context?
It's tough because it did seem just more of like a lighthearted comment. It was on IG Live. Same time, you don't say that. I just don't think you say that. It was disrespectful.
I'm with you because I said, and I actually did get a chance to like go back and check out some more of the stuff. He was talking about his game as well. He was talking about some of the things he did well, some things he struggled with and everything. And then it kind of tongue-in-cheek, lighthearted.
It was just one of those things you say to your boys. You're watching another game on the couch, or they just ask you about the game.
Exactly.
I think they're going to get clapped this week.
The problem is this, though. As a professional athlete that was on the losing end in the matchup with this team just a week ago, you can't say that. First off, it looks distasteful. It looks like you're a hater, and it looks like you're a sore loser on top of that. Not saying that being a sore loser is a bad thing, because trust me, you want to talk about sore losers, I'm the biggest, most just terrible loser ever. I will be sick and not talk to you for like a month if I lose. I hate to do it, but you still can't publicly say certain things after the game, even if you believe it. Even if you believe it, you just can't say it because the perception, it just doesn't look good. It's not professional. And I think that's the biggest thing with Claypool. And right, wrong, or indifferent, with Juju, a lot of times as a younger player, his first 2 years, he got to pass on a lot of things because of how we viewed him. We viewed him as the baby. He was marketed as being a baby. being young, right?
Yeah,
we don't view Claypool that same way. Even though he's still a rookie, we don't view Claypool
maybe it's just
as...
because we had AB. Is that it? I don't know.
I'm not sure, but we don't view Claypool as your typical, oh, he's just young saying whatever. Like, he's just got, he'll learn that as he grows. We don't view him the same way. We view him as if he's in the same ballpark of Juju now. Like, you should be understanding you don't say that. You should know better than to say that. So I think that's another reason why it's kind of frustrating with him. You're like, dude, you got to know better. You know not to say that.
Yeah, it's got to be because none of our receivers are as established as AB was at that time. It's got to be that. And then our oldest receiver is Juju. I don't know if oldest technically, but the one that has the most years under his belt in the receiving corps is Juju, and he's really young still. And
super young. I mean,
we're talking about just some of the stuff that, the TikTok and all that other type of stuff. Even everything that he's done up to this point where you're just like, yeah, he's having fun. He's a kid and everything. If he's like your oldest guy, I think that's why you're expecting maybe Claypool to come in here, and maybe the production matches it too, and how he plays. You're like, dude, what do you have? All those touchdowns this year.
He
really solid rookie year.
Touchdowns, man. He balled out when he was given the opportunities. So I think you hit on it absolutely perfect right there. It's just frustrating because, like I said, it's not like he doesn't know this stuff now. If this is week 1, week 2, sure, but after all the criticism that they've received from a wide receiver standpoint as it pertains to bulletin board material, as it pertains to social media and what to say, what not to say, what to do and what not to do. I mean, we've seen the height of it this year. Obviously with Juju, we saw the height of it. If you're Claypool, like, come on, man. Even though technically you didn't break any rules, it's kind of like how we said with the Steelers with the whole COVID situation with Vance, right? Even though you're operating by the book, still use some common sense. Like, you didn't say anything that was technically wrong, but bro, common sense says don't say that right then. You could wait a week and say it after the game. As soon as if they get beat by the Chiefs, you can be the first one on social media to say, hey, welcome to Cancun. You going fishing. We seen Patrick Beverly do it. It's cool. Guys do that. If you want to go that route, you can do that. You can't say it on the front end though, baby. That's what you can't do. It just looks bad.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily would have liked it on the back end though either.
I'm not saying I would have, but it would have been. Trust me, it wouldn't have had this level of just how it's viewed right now. It looks very bad on him personally. You know what I mean? And I think that's the difference. If he says it after the game, if they go out there and get beat by the Chiefs, you can say it. Now, it still is not going to look good, but it won't look as bad. Like, that's the difference. Like, right now, it looks very bad on him. Whereas if he says it after they had gotten beat by the Chiefs, it doesn't look bad on him.
Probably less highlighted.
Right.
Too.
It's just like, all right, he said it, but he's more still hating, but it's not the end of the world. That's, to me, is the big difference with it, though, man.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but hopefully he learns. Hopefully he learns, man.
So what do we got?
Man, we had some big movement today as well. And obviously we're gonna throughout this offseason, we got to continue to talk about just the front office and some of the moving parts that could be going on. But before we even get to the front office element of it, in terms of Colbert, Omar Khan, Brandon Hunt, we got to talk about 3 coaches that were today notified that they would not have their contracts extended. Offensive coordinator Randy Fichtner, offensive line coach Shaun Sarrett, and defensive backs coach Tom Bradley. All 3 of those guys were notified and were made aware that they would not have their contracts extended. So they weren't fired. I know people looked at it and said, oh, these guys are fired. Technically, they weren't fired. Contract just wasn't extended. Very similar to when the NFL says we didn't have to cancel a game this year. Technically, they didn't cancel a game. They just rescheduled a lot of them. So technically, those coaches were not fired. Technically, their contracts just expired. So the Steelers can continue on with the moniker of we don't fire our assistant coaches. So everything's all in place. We're still good. But I will say this, initially.
Well, we talked about this last podcast. Is this something that they really want to be a part of their brand?
This is their brand. This is the brand. All right. So technically, these guys were not fired. Everything is still in place. Okay. If you come here, we'll take care of you. All that's still in place. See, you see how it works, right? You see how it works here? All right. But my initial reaction to it, I thought that all 3 of those guys, I like the moves. Yeah. I think that they were necessary. When we talk about Randy Fichtner, we understood everything surrounding him. Now, I was the most surprised with his name being on this list because of the direct relation with not only Ben, because obviously he was Ben's quarterback coach for a while and then became his offensive coordinator. But him and Coach Tomlin,
I was going to say there is a connection
linked.
there.
They are linked back to their Memphis days. So you think that's a long time ago. These two guys have been, related from a coaching standpoint for multiple decades. So for them to not renew his contract, like I said, was a big time shock to me. Very similar if a guy like Keith Butler, because he's also a part of that, man, back in Memphis days, those guys getting their starts together. So like I said, I was very surprised by that, but also because of the whole Ben Roethlisberger dynamic. I was surprised because we know that, man, even if Ben is able to come back, however that works, if they want him back, if he wants to return, we were all under the assumption that, man, how open would he be to having a fresh start with a new OC? Would he be open to that? Would he not be open to that? How would the organization look to replacing their offensive coordinator? Would they promote from within with a guy like Matt Canada? Would they outsource guys like Doug Peterson? His name continues to pop up. Any coach that's been under Sean McVay, names are popping up as well. So we've seen different scenarios, but like I said, that was still very much surprising. But I do think it was the right move. I think it sends the right message that, number one, what happened offensively this year was not acceptable. I don't care when we bring up, stats that were meaningless. That doesn't help you in terms of winning games. And the offense as a whole, it just didn't do enough consistently. And we can go down the list of multiple position groups and things like that, but as a whole, they weren't consistent enough. So I do think that was the right move. Offensive line is a very similar situation. You go from Mike Munchak, you took a chance on Shaun Sarrett. Sarrett had been a part of the organization, had been under Mike Munchak for multiple years. Obviously, he didn't live up to Mike Munchak's productivity with that group, and then the group as a whole's productivity dropped. When that's the case, you have to make a move. Mm-hmm. Correct move right there. Then when it came to Tom Bradley, I don't think that he deserved it, but he was the fall guy. Meaning this, we know that Keith Butler's the DC. You could fire him as the DC, sure, but he's not just the DC. He's also outside linebackers coach. And what has happened since he's taken over as outside linebackers coach? TJ Watt has went from really good player to defensive player of the year candidate back-to-back years. Probably will win it this year. What do we see with Bud Dupree? Bud Dupree went from a good guy, kind of bust, kind of okay, to double-digit sack guy multiple years. We saw Alex Highsmith come in as a rookie and play well at times. And this doesn't even speak on what he's been able to do throughout his tenure when he had the inside and outside linebackers in terms of guys like James Ferrier, in terms of guys like Ryan Shazier, Lawrence Timmons, Lamar Woodley. All these guys were under his tutelage as well. So to remove him as DC, you also remove him as your outside linebackers coach as well, in theory, and you don't want to touch that as well. So I didn't see them touching him. And then obviously the other defensive coordinator is who? Mike Tomlin. You're not firing Mike Tomlin because obviously he's your head guy as well. So that's why when I said, okay, who would you look to? Because you got to have somebody to go from the defense. If you're taking two guys from this offense, you got to have somebody just to let the defense, because let's be real, the defense, they had their shortcomings. They definitely dropped the ball.
It's weird, but secondary was that the worst out of the group? I mean, but that's maybe for a whole season, maybe.
And that's the difference. I do think throughout the whole season, they were the healthiest group. We talked about in that D line. We talked about obviously linebackers outside and inside, what they dealt with. They still were able to handle it. But throughout the year, the secondary was the most healthiest group. Granted, at the end, obviously Joe had some COVID and stuff like that to deal with, and that held him out. But for the majority of the time, Minka, Edmonds, Nelson, they would typically have 3 of the 4 guys every time. And what did we see continually throughout the year? It started out early. The miscommunications on the back end, being susceptible to big plays. We thought it was an early thing due to a lack of preseason, but we saw that actually continued even in the wild card game. It was
a little scattered, but you saw it.
It still continued. So when you talk about all of this and understand that you want to make a change, but knowing the two guys that technically, if you were going to make a change in the traditional year, it would be one of those two guys, whether it's Tomlin or Butler, but you're not doing that. The next best thing is Tom Bradley, the secondary coach. So that's why when I looked at him, I said, I don't really view him as the guy, but you kind of do it anyways. It would have been the equivalent if they would have said, all right, we can't touch Fichtner, so we'll fire Eddie Faulkner, the running backs coach. You know what I mean? Like, it would have been that type of thing. Like, all right, technically, I mean, it's not all on you, but you played a part, so you'll be the guy.
Yeah.
That's just kind of how I looked at it. So I think that they did what they had to do. think they made the necessary moves because, number one, it sends a statement to the team letting you know this is not acceptable. It also lets you know that I don't care about your personal relationships with other coaches or prominent players on this team. If your productivity isn't equaling up to what we are expecting from you, we will make a move. So I do, like I said, and I know these guys personal, so it does suck to see them, not have jobs, but in this business, it's a results-based league. And if you're not producing those results, as much as you could be a great guy off the field or away from the facility, you got to make those type of moves when that productivity isn't what it needs to be. So it is what it is, man.
Yeah, and that's what everyone's talked about. Like Fichtner, great guy off the field. Everyone has talked about that.
Absolutely.
But I think you kind of hit it. Now, you could blame this, that, whatever about the offense and their slow starts, but if you look at the body of work over these past couple of years, there's just been these consistent themes of these slow starts, and I guess he's the one calling the plays. He's the one designing the plays, so that's where you got to point to. Like I said, you could point to other things being like part of the problem, but at the end of the day, he's the OC, and I just think that body of work, that consistent theme that we've saw over these past couple of years, where you're just like, all right, I think it is time for a change.
So now you're making me ask the question.
What?
Not just to you, but to y'all as well. The return of Haley?
I would be down with it.
Are we down for the return of Haley? For me, because obviously he was the OC when I was here throughout, all 4 of my years here. I loved him as the OC. I think his play calling is really good. I think his feel for calling plays, because that's the difference, right? We talk about you can have a guy who's great at designing plays, but has zero clue when to call these plays. And then you got the alternative. You can call them great, but you don't know how to design anything. I thought Haley had a good feel for both. Now, obviously, the big issue with him is him and Ben's relationship. That's ultimately why he got fired or didn't get his contract renewed after a 40-point outburst in the playoffs. Granted, we lost to the Jags, but they still put up 40. And the offense throughout the season was still very productive.
Oh yeah, that was
the
one
with
with
Juju.
Juju,
Absolutely,
Juju Martavis.
Yeah, that was all under Haley, and he got, he wasn't brought back. His services weren't retained after that year. But we know that was solely because of him and Ben and how they bumped heads. And yeah, it's no secret that was an issue. Even in practice, you would see it. You just kind of live with it. It is what it is. I'm not opposed to him returning, though, but that dynamic would have to be a little bit different now, because I do think this go around, if he were to be brought back, that Haley would have more importance than Ben. I think beforehand, it was the opposite. Ben had more importance than Haley, which was why when it came down to decision-making time, you ride with Seven. At this stage in Seven's career, you've already said it, best case next 3 years. Best case scenario, right? And that's if he finds fault in the youth and can play more consistent 3 years. With whoever you bring in as the offensive coordinator, you're expecting him to be here a lot longer than that. That's the still the way. They keep their guys under tenure for multiple years. So to me, whoever you bring in as OC, that has to be very clearly communicated to not just Ben, but to the rest of the offense that, hey, this coordinator, his job is to coordinate, no longer be a yes man for Ben. I think that has to be the approach when you go forward.
So yeah, it's either you pick the coordinator with the 4 or 5 years in mind, or do you just go this year with Canada and then you figure it out afterwards? Are those the two approaches?
Realistically, yeah. They could promote from within with Canada. No guarantee that Canada would do well. He doesn't have offensive coordinator experience at the NFL level. Just rumors about did he call plays, did he not call plays, but no one really knows 100%. So you could take that chance, but to me personally, I think if you go that route, you're just going to get what we already have been seeing in terms of Ben. If he wants to call these plays, he's going to call these plays. Whereas if you bring in somebody different, a little bit more of a high profile, category, right? And I'm not saying Doug Peterson because I want him. I'm just simply saying for namesake, Doug Peterson, he's a very respectable offensive mind. People respect that. If he were to be brought into the organization, they would respect that. Ben, Ben can big boy Matt Canada in terms of Ben has seen more football at the NFL level than Canada. He has more experience, more success. It's different when you're talking about a guy like Doug Peterson. Kind of goes to that
iron sharpens iron thing that Tomlin talks about.
Whereas Doug Peterson, they're going to look at each other like, hey, I respect what you say. Not only have I seen this when you're a coordinator, but you also have won Super Bowls as a head coach. with different quarterbacks in terms of how you generated that success. So I think it would be different. Now, my only concern is this. Outside of Dick LeBeau and when Keith Butler was the linebackers coach, we typically do not pay our assistant coaches competitive rates from a whole NFL standpoint. They're not the worst, but to get some of these marquee names that we speak of, right? When you think of your Zach Taylors, your Eric Bieniemys, your Brian Dabols, all these higher end guys, you typically got to pay a lot more to get those level guys as coordinators.
Why don't we do that?
We like to go in-house for the promotion, continuity. So you see how you can spin it, right? Some people will say it's cheap. Some people will just say, oh, they promote from within. They like to keep the
was
continuity.
Haley considered a high profile? I mean, it was kind of. I don't know what the contract was. Did it match that?
This was the thing with Haley. Now remember, this was right after he got fired from Kansas City when they brought him on as the OC. So his numbers might have been more favorable because
he's got some connection here, right?
I believe so. I don't know the full history behind Haley, but I do know that played a part into it. Whereas he was on the decline, right? He was head coach, and now it's all right. You ain't head coach no more. OC, this is the money we're gonna offer you. Take that. Guys like Bieniemy, guys like Dable, guys that are under the McVay tree.
They could go head coach or coordinator.
So that money is gonna have to reflect that. If you're Bieniemy and I can get head coaching jobs, if you're gonna pay me to be an OC, my money better reflect that, hey, I was a head coaching candidate. My money says so.
Right.
And right now, the Steelers historically, like I said, they increased Keith Butler's salary when he was a linebackers coach, and he was getting compensated at a high level at the time. Then obviously when they bumped up to DC, that compensation isn't the same. High level position coach isn't the same as high level coordinator from a pay standpoint. So even then, once that happened, that kind of balanced that whole thing out. So outside of Dick LeBeau, they really haven't paid a substantial amount to an assistant coach. So to me, it makes me wonder also, are we expecting too much from some of these guys because they're not compensated like that? We expect greatness from Randy Fichtner, but he wasn't compensated at that level. We're going to expect greatness from Matt Canada if he's promoted, but he's not going to be compensated on a level that the great coordinators are paid at. So to me, I just that's my thing when I'm thinking about that a lot more. It's a lot of variables because I'm like, yeah, we can make this wish list of candidates that I think would be great here, but I don't think we're going to pay them what it would take for them to come here. And that to me is going to be a big issue, man.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting.
But that's why I wanted to know, like I said, from y'all, man. If you're open to Haley coming back,
I'm definitely open to Haley coming back. I liked the offense when he was here.
It was
really
exciting.
did. The only thing I didn't like was maybe the screens or the no QB sneaks. Outside of that, Ben had some of his best years, man.
I heard the screens, I heard no QB sneaks, and I heard the 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 taking shots downfield.
I don't mind that.
Yeah, I love that. Like I said, I love that. It made like I said, when it first got introduced to me, because coming from Buffalo, we never saw that style of play. But I get here, and the first couple of times I might have threw up on myself a little bit, like, oh God, it's 31. Why are you throwing it downfield? And then it starts having me like, oh, all right, I got you now.
Honestly, would the screens be the worst thing with how our offensive personnel is right now? Little screen Deontay. I mean,
I'm telling you, listen, Haley can design. Haley knows how to call plays. Haley's issue was never on the field. That was never a Haley issue. The biggest thing with Haley was his relationship with Ben. And then obviously some of the local establishments on the North Shore, they weren't very kind to him. Outside of that, Haley can coach his tail off as an offensive coordinator. So that's why for me, I'm like, I'm not opposed to it. Now and now you might probably can answer this better. In the history of the Steelers, have they had scenarios where coaches have left and come back? No. I know with players they have. I can tell you, Will Allen, William Gay were guys that left, came back, but I don't remember that ever happening with coaches.
No, not in recent history. I don't know if someone could talk about like the 90s under Cowher, or even going back to like late 70s or 80s under Noel. I have no clue.
If that is realistic, then sure. I mean, I love that.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know if it's realistic or not.
Then I don't. Yeah, I just don't have a clue. Now, the reason Doug Peterson always is brought up is obviously because of the connection here, right? Between him being.
I didn't even know he had a connection here.
No. In terms of, I forgot why they were saying. I want to say it's because of the whole being in the same state scenario. Yeah. I think that was what that's what they're alluding to. But then obviously he was under Andy Reid. That's why Kansas City's the other link.
Okay.
In terms of he was going to take that role of offensive coordinator.
Like if Bieniemy leaves for a head coaching job.
Because more than likely Bieniemy will be gone this year. He's going to be one of the top head coaching candidates. He's already been, I want to say they already have him in line to interview 2 or 3 different spots already. So that's
happened before with McDaniels going to the Broncos,
question,
the head
man.
coach going back to the Patriots.
Yes.
Was there a DC up there too, where they left and came back to the Patriots? I can't remember, but it's been done
I know
before.
for a fact with McDaniels.
Yeah.
I know for a fact with him.
But I think they're even talking about Patricia going back up there now.
Yeah, I have seen that. Yes.
But yeah, that type of stuff's been done
because,
before. But yeah, I guess
Gerard Mayo though up there, he's their linebackers coach right now. He just interviewed for a head coaching job as well.
Okay.
So it's a lot of moving pieces over there, but yeah.
What do you think of Peterson? That like him specifically? We talked about Haley.
As an offensive coordinator, I love him. I think you saw what he can do, what he was doing in Philly. Now, granted, when he had not even the full gamut, because he did this even with Nick Foles at times. You can see his feel for play calls is there. His creativity, the Philly special. I mean, it's been a hit for how long now? I mean, you see his creativity. You see how he's used different guys. I mean, he's not always had this full gamut of talent.
I was going to say that's probably with less personnel than what he would have here.
He realistically helped discover Miles Sanders as well, a guy that we thought was really well. I mean, played really well, in these past 2 years. So when I think of Doug Peterson, I do think that he could do his thing as offensive coordinator. He's already done, his job as offensive coordinator before. I think more so is, can you pay him enough to want to come here? And would he want to come here? Because if you're considering the Steelers and the Chiefs right now, the Chiefs are the more favorable job because, number one, their quarterback is younger, whereas our quarterback is older. They also have their head coach and GM probably going to be in place for the next 5 to 10 years. Realistically, in the next 3 years, we could be looking at new quarterback, new head coach, new GM. And that's just facts. So if you're Doug Peterson, which, what do you want to join?
Yeah.
So
what do you want? Do you want maybe a little bit more of a challenge?
Because it's definitely going to be a challenge.
Because the Andy Reid situation, it's like, all right, now you're just going back to your comfort zone. Whereas with the Steelers, man, if you could come in here and we have explosive offense, you could maybe bounce back to a head coaching position quicker, depending on what you want to do.
But he could be battered or a little bit gun-shy because of how everything
maybe he
played
wants
out
to
in
stick
Philly.
with it. Yeah.
I mean, because you think in Philly, he had a ton of success as a head coach. Super Bowl, multiple division championships, multiple playoff appearances in a very short span. And then got fired within a 5-year window. Like, that I mean,
with not as, like you said, with not the most help compared to other teams.
So, yeah, if you're him, you might be like, dude,
this OC stuff ain't
I don't like that. Yeah, give me OC, I can do my thing, and I don't have to worry about getting fired after having success.
Because here's the thing. So, with the Chiefs versus the Steelers, if he goes to the Chiefs, they have success. Obviously, they have Mahomes and everything. They're going to be good for the next 5 to 10 years. No credit's going to be put to him.
Correct.
If he comes here and things start going well, he's going to get a lot of credit.
Absolutely. So it depends on how you sell it to him. Because if I'm his agent, that's the one way I'm spending it to him. But if I was anti-Pittsburgh, the other way I'm spending it to him is this. You could be without a job in 3 years. Realistically, if you come here, say Ben flops in a year, and then they struggle to draft a quarterback, or Mason is the guy and he struggles to perform, they're not going to look at Ben retiring. They're not going to look at Mason not being good enough. They're going to say, oh, well, who's been the OC during that time?
I'm assuming they'd give him a chance past Ben, correct?
Depending on what it looks like. That's all I'm saying.
But that goes to your point, though. How much faith do you have in Mason? If we're going to go with him, now you're going to have to draft a quarterback, whatever it is. There is a lot more uncertainty. Just in general.
Question. Whereas for a fact in Kansas City, you already said it, man. That's your comfort zone. You could just, you don't even have to be plugged in. You could just fake like you're talking. Mahomes call what you want to call it. They're going to say, well, he's a part of the staff. He had it done well. We saw that help. Adam Gase. That saved him how many times now? He's under Peyton Manning. He was a part of Peyton Manning. That got him in Miami. That got him in New York. Let's see if he gets him another job.
He didn't even have to go back to OC from Miami to New York.
Solely because of him being a part of Peyton Manning. So that could be Doug Peterson's approach as well. If I'm just a part of Mahomes keep doing what he does, they going to say, well, he's a part of that group. Gotta work. Look at how we look at the enemy. I'm just saying. That's how it goes, baby.
Are we even in the mix for Peterson? I don't know if that's just Steeler fans being Steeler fans because he's like the top name.
This is the thing. So technically, yes, you're in the mix. What is going to decide is, number one, when he publicly says who he wants to look at. Number two, when we start talking money, are we in the mix? Because that will eliminate a lot of people. Yeah.
Why not money, dude? I'm just really questioning this. Because it doesn't go up against our cap. Like, what is it? I mean, if it goes to the whole, we promote within, why can't we pay our guys a little bit better? Or we're just paying the best for us, most cost efficient. I don't know, man.
We'll talk later.
Okay.
I'm not talking about that right here. Okay. We'll talk later though.
It's just questions.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk later though. But yeah, man, it's unfortunate. It's very much unfortunate because, like you said, it doesn't count against the cap. And you would think that, hey, if we have
an extra million,
right, if we have the resources to acquire these type of talented coaches, why wouldn't you pay that money? Because by acquiring them, that's only going to help your brand. That's only going to help win more. But that's a similar conversation we had when we talked about the O-line. We said, man, why wouldn't you put your best 5 out there instead of trying not to hurt feelings? And then it's funny because when I kept hinting to the whole Matt Filer and Kevin Dotson, both of them needing to be out there, and we were simply saying that, hey, it shouldn't be just, Dotson needs to come in and play left guard. Like either side, you already see the reports that came out just yesterday that the team is going to be looking to either trade or cut both DeCastro and Marquise Pouncey.
Whoa. I did not hear that.
Those reports came out yesterday. So you already see that they're going to be both of those guys. They said they're going to look to potentially move or release both of those guys this offseason. So to me, that already lets you know that they're looking at them and saying, hey, look, your play didn't stand up to what we have liked it to have been, along with what your contract is. We're looking to make a move here potentially. If they're even looking to say that, not even a week after.
It's like, why wasn't this happening the last 3 weeks of the season?
And that to me was the big issue. And that's why I kept saying, it's like, you say you want to win. You say you want your best players out there, but yet you won't do it. And then obviously they get the accolades of being Pro Bowl players. And these are my guys, brothers, 4 years together. But when you watch them on tape this year, their play was not up to that level. And that was the biggest issue, but they wouldn't address that. They wouldn't change anything up there. And now to see these reports coming out right after the season, it's like, man, you already knew you wanted to do this. You were already considering these things. Why not do that if that's going to give you the best chance to win? But that's the politics that we talk about, which is another reason why when we talk about some of these, why wouldn't they pay these guys and this and that? It's a lot that goes into those decisions instead of it just being that cut and dry of, it's only an extra $2 million, pay the extra $2 million, you get this guy. It's more than just, simplifying it like that. Even though it should be that simple, it never is at this level.
Right. Dude, you got a tough job, man. I know you said getting into coaching would be a tough job for you, but man, you're trying to navigate a lot of things here. You got
crazy, bro.
You got your friends still playing.
It's crazy.
You're cool with people in management.
Listen,
you're trying to be real on the mic. Like you got a lot of things you play.
I will be glad in the next 4 years because by then, the amount of guys that I currently still have personal relationships with on the team, it'll be down to like probably 1 or 2 of those guys.
Okay.
Coaching staff and players included.
Then you're going
It'll be a lot easier. Yeah. Then from there, it's no more of this, you know what? I don't want to say any names. I'm going to just drop a name. I don't care. It's this guy. All right, cool. But these are my guys. So it's like, I'm going to give you the correct analysis. I'm going to tell you the truth, but I might not name drop as often as some people would like.
Sugarcoat a little bit.
That's the thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? Whereas like you hear when I talk about Buffalo, because outside of Jerry Hughes, none of those guys I played with. Dean Marley, we played together in college. But other than that, it's like, I don't know those guys personally. So I can drop on them. I can say, hey, this guy isn't playing well. That guy's struggling. We talk about other teams. It's easy. But when you got the personal relationships, it's like, bro,
and you're still around down there.
I pull up outside of COVID. I'm down. Last year I was down there more there than we were here. Like, It's just realistic. So it's just a little different, man. It's a little different.
So what do we got, man?
We got
I guess basically both of us were open to Haley and we're open to Peterson.
Absolutely, man. Definitely open to both of those guys. But let us know if you're open to it. That's the big thing. Now, we also have more potential movement / non-movement. So this is good as well, but this is current in terms of our GM and potential GM candidates. Kevin Colbert was one of the candidates for the Lions GM job, but they just announced today that they're going to go with a guy named Brad Holmes, who was the director of college scouting for the Rams. I like the hire by the Lions. I did like the fact that they were considering Colbert. We obviously know he's a gold jacket guy for what he's been able to do under his tenure here. I mean, you look at the amount of success he's had. You look at the talent he's acquired through the draft, through free agency. I'm a Kevin Colbert baby as myself. So yeah, we all, his track record speaks for himself. But the reason why this is interesting is this.
It's really interesting.
So you obviously have Kevin Colbert, who has already said multiple times throughout the past year or two that he's eyeing his retirement. He's already switched his contracts to no longer super long extensions. It was 2-year deals every other year is how he's operating, right? So he's already letting you know that probably within the next 3 years, he won't be here. He'll probably be retired by then. But the reason why this is unique is because we have 2 candidates for GM positions already in-house. One guy has already had 2 interviews, Omar Khan. Omar Khan, he's the numbers guy. He makes the salary cap work the way it does. He already had an interview with the Texans. He had an interview with the Panthers. Now, obviously, he didn't get either job. The Texans went with Cicero out of the New England Patriots, and the Panthers, they just announced their guy about an hour ago, and they said it wasn't going to be Omar Khan. But the fact that he's already getting interviews, similar to what we talked about with position coaches. If this coach is starting to get interviews for head coaching jobs, you're not going to be able to hold on to him unless you start paying him that way or you promote him from within. That's typically how it works. So the fact that Omar Khan is already getting these interview spots, that's letting you know, okay, that clock is starting to tick in terms of decision making. Do we stick with Kevin Colbert for the next couple of years? Because obviously his track record speaks for himself. Do you allow him to retire whenever he chooses to? If he's, hey, whenever Ben leaves, I want to leave. Do you do that with him? Or do you say, well, you know what? We have our replacement in terms of Omar Khan. Why let somebody else take this guy that we've groomed when we could potentially, if we got to make this move a year early or so, we do that so that we already have this guy. Now, it's no guarantee that Omar Khan will be the correct guy, but he is a hot commodity in terms of GM candidate.
And he's already on the Steelers.
Yeah. He's been here. This is where he cut his teeth. This is where he learned everything. So if you're Pittsburgh, that's a decision because you're not going to be able to wait the next 3 years and hope that Omar doesn't leave without at least communicating to him like, hey, man, this is your job. As soon as he leaves, this is for you. Now, I've been a part of a scenario where that has been the case. When I was in Buffalo, they had Buddy Nix, who was a longtime GM up there. And towards the end of his tenure, they didn't want to force him out. But they were like, hey, look, man, we got this young guy, Doug Whaley, former Pittsburgh guy, right? Who was waiting in the wings. Very similar to how we view Omar Khan. And what they did, it was a 2-year transition plan. The first year, they still allowed Buddy Nix to be the GM. He did the draft, he did the personnel, but he had an assistant GM who was Doug Whaley. Doug got the chance to learn up under him for that year. Then after that second year, Doug takes over in terms of being the front guy for the draft and everything. And then from there, they kind of ease Buddy Nix out of there. And that's how they made that transition. Now, they could do something like that with Omar Khan, but number one, they would have to communicate that with him. He would have to be open to that as well. And I'm sure they would have to do some type of compensation increase for him to sit there and say, I'll be the assistant until Colbert leaves. Now, that's one part of it. The other guy that we talk about is Brandon Hunt. Now, he is very similar to Brad Holmes, who was the director of college scouting for the Rams that got the GM job for Detroit. Brandon Hunt is that for us. We love Brandon Hunt here. We all feel that he's going to be another really good GM because of how he has an eye for talent. He does a great job of scouting, whether it's draft, free agency. He's one of the best guys doing it. And he's
you
very
look at
young.
some of our drafts, man.
Absolutely. Young guy, very, very talented in that field. He is going to be another guy that's going to start coming up and getting interviewed for GM jobs. So if you are the Steelers organization, if you're Mr. Rooney, do you hold on to Kevin Colbert to let him finish out however long he wants to go, but you run the risk of potentially losing 2 very much hot young GM candidates within, and now you got to go outsource whenever Colbert leaves? Or, like I said, do you find a way to keep one of those 2 guys or both of those guys and ultimately, have a tough conversation with Kevin Colbert? That's going to be a very difficult decision because with Omar Khan and Brandon Hunt, they both are very specialized in one area, right? Omar Khan, he specializes in the numbers, but he's not necessarily a football guy in terms of a talent evaluator. Brandon Hunt, he is a great talent evaluator, but he hasn't proven to be a numbers guy just yet. So with either one of those guys, you are taking a chance. Neither one of those guys have had that experience of being the GM either. So whatever move you make, you have to be very strategic because as we know, and as we can look around the league at various teams that have made moves at GM, if you get it right, great. But if you get it wrong, it can set your franchise back for multiple years. And this is, like I said, all happening while we're still going to be discussing the quarterback throughout this, whether it's this year, next couple of years. It's a lot of movement and a lot of major decisions that are going to be had not only this offseason, but in the next 2 to 3 years, man. So it's a crazy scenario right now, man.
Well, I got two things.
Talk to me, baby.
What makes this really interesting to me, though,
Yeah,
is like you said with Colbert and him saying, we're close to retirement. We're just going to do 1 year, 2 year deal, whatever it is. That Lions job would have been like a 5 or 6 year deal.
it would have to have been, right?
There's no way you go to a Lions job and you're just doing year by year.
No question.
And he was interested in it.
Yes.
So like, what's at play here?
You see? But then also remember this, 2 years ago, he was linked to the Panthers job as well.
Yeah.
And people started asking, hey, is he going to leave to go to Carolina? I believe that he has some type of family ties in Carolina, or is something about Carolina from a personal standpoint that made it interesting to him. And that's what made it a lot more realistic to everyone else. But like you said, even if he took the Carolina job, that wouldn't have been a 2-year thing either. But he's definitely switched his contracts to that style in Pittsburgh, and he's already publicly said that. This isn't me speculating. This isn't me being hypothetical. You know, I don't like hypotheticals. These are all factual things. So, yeah, man.
I have no clue.
It's a weird dynamic,
there's
right?
no answer. It's just like, what the hell's going on?
Right. And if you're Mr. Rooney, how do you handle that?
Yeah, what do you think of it? Whenever
like to me, I can see both scenarios, right? I can see the scenario where, you know what, I'm not even going to tell you both scenarios. We'll clarify both scenarios, and then I'll tell you what I would do. So both scenarios, kind of how I broke down. You could ride with Kevin Colbert until the sunset, whether it's 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, however long it may be. And then from there, you let the chips fall where they may. If you were able to retain Brandon Hunt or Omar Khan on your staff, well, then obviously you'll promote those guys after the fact. If not, you look for one of the next hot commodity GMs. Okay, that's one way you can go about it. The other way is what I alluded to, what they did in Buffalo with Doug Whaley and Buddy Nix. You pick which one you like more between Omar Khan and Brandon Hunt. You come to them with the offer and say, hey, look, I'll pay you this as an increase. We will change your title to assistant GM. And then from there, whenever Colbert decides to leave, whenever that may be, you'll be the guy. If they're open to it, cool. And now we got that plan in place. If it's me, I'm taking option B, what I just said in terms of Colbert, man, let me know how long you plan on staying. Are you, when Ben goes, you go? And that's fine if that is the case, because I do think him and Tomlin are taking similar approaches with that, right? Especially over these next couple of years. I do think whenever Ben decides to hang it up or he is gone, I think within the next year or so, both of those guys will be gone as well. So
Tomlin too.
I do. And not in a bad way.
Fresh start.
I just think a fresh start. I think that's what it's going to come down to, man. And like I said, right, wrong, or indifferent, I just think that that's what it's going to be. And you have to think how long he's already been here as well. He's been here for a long time. This doesn't happen at the NFL level. You know what I mean? Like, you don't stay at a head coaching spot 15, 17, 20 years. Not at one spot.
Belichick, Reed,
you see what
Peyton,
I mean? It's rare.
Yeah.
Rare. So when I'm thinking of that, if I'm Mr. Rooney, I'm taking that approach of, hey, look, man, let me know how long you plan on staying.
You just want to know.
I just need to know. Because once I know if it's 1 year, 3 year, now I can go to Omar Khan. And the reason why I would probably go Omar over Brandon Hunt is because I do think at this level as a GM, the numbers of a salary cap are a lot more important. Talent evaluation is right up there. I feel like it's 51-49. I feel like 51 because if you don't have the cap in order, I don't care how great you are at evaluating talent. You're not going to be able to get those guys here. You're not going to be able to keep those players here.
Capitalize on a big free agent year or something.
Absolutely. Whereas with Omar, what are you saying, Omar? I mean, the wizardry he did last year to get us Ebron.
How the hell did we get Ebron?
We were still trying to figure that out. I'm like, I don't even know what he did, what blood oath he took. But
or even getting Derek Watt. Now,
like,
if you agree or disagree with the signing, still like, having that space.
Have that money, right? So when I think of that, I'm like, I want a cap wizard because not only in the short term is it going to be needed with Ben, and regardless if you keep him or not, you're going to have to make moves. But going forward, when we draft a new guy, whether we sign a new guy to be the franchise guy, or if you go with Mason, whatever it is, I want a guy that knows how to make those numbers work. And then from there, I'm going to just rely on that scouting department to do what they do. You got to rely on somebody, right? But with Brandon as the GM, and not saying that he's not capable, I just haven't seen him in that role where he has had to make the numbers work. So that's always my biggest thing with him from that standpoint.
Okay.
But that's the approach I would take, though. And like I said, once Kevin tells me how long he's staying, 1, 2, 3, 5, whatever it is, I'm going right to Omar. I'm saying, look, man, this is the scenario. What does the number have to be to make you stay? And I love when they had that conversation because I've been on the good end of that conversation before. When they come in, they say, all right, we messed up. What's it going to take to make you happy? And then you get to just be outlandish. You're going to need to do this, and don't forget that. Like it's certain times when you know you got them. And if you Omar, you got to know, baby, those two interviews, even though you didn't get them, that is hey, I got you guys now. Because I've already taken these interviews.
Yeah, maybe next year.
Right. There's no more speculation of if I can make the jump. They already wanted me. Now, granted, they might have went elsewhere for whatever the reason may be, but I've already gotten interest from multiple teams now. So now you're going to have to, either fork over this money or I'm taking my talents elsewhere the next opportunity I get. So, yeah, that's how I'm approaching them.
You broke it down excellent, dude.
And we make the money work after that. Hope for the best, right?
So, yeah, at the end of the day, it's just like we want to know. If you're Rooney, just let us know. No more of this 1-to-1 year deals and
I need to know, man.
Just uncertainty. It's like, just let me know.
Essentially, if Kevin Colbert, if he doesn't communicate that with Mr. Rooney, it would be very much similar to Ben Roethlisberger. If he doesn't communicate, hey, do I want to play 1 year? Do I want to play the next 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, whatever? You essentially hold the organization hostage because we respect you and love you so much, and your productivity throughout your tenure was so great that we aren't gonna move on from you if it's not agreed upon by both of us. But the reason why I hold you hostage is because we can't plan ahead because we still have you guys here and we just can't do both. So that's why I said, man, if you take that approach and not communicate it, then you put the organization in a bad stance as well. Because if you're Mr. Rooney, if I don't know how long Kevin Colbert's staying, I can't communicate that with Omar Khan or Brandon Hunt. And either one of those guys, to tell them to just sit, wait, and hope for the best in the next 3 to 5 years, that's not realistic. Those guys aren't going to do that. So that's why I think it's important. And no different with Ben. Ben is going to have conversations with those same guys in terms of Tomlin, in terms of Kevin Colbert and Mr. Rooney, to let him know, hey, man, look, I want to get another 2 years, or I just want 1 year, whatever it is. And whatever they all agree upon, he has to communicate that with them. It can't be this open-ended, oh, man, well, it could be next year. It could be 5 years. It could be this. Like, they're not going to be able to operate the way they need to. Mm-hmm. So that's why, for me, I think communication is going to be key in both of those scenarios, man.
Sure. That was interesting, dude. That's interesting.
Like I said, man, it's going to be an interesting offseason, baby, between personnel moves on the field and staff-wise, man. I'm excited, though. I am excited because I do think that the moves that we've already seen from a coaching standpoint, I don't think that that's going to be the end of it. I think we will see more as this thing progresses because it just wasn't good enough. Last year wasn't good enough. The past 2-3 years haven't been good enough. And when you're not good enough in Pittsburgh, changes must be made. This isn't a mediocre franchise. This isn't a mediocre fan base. That's not acceptable in Pittsburgh. And that's what we've fallen into. Now, granted, our mediocrity is a little bit different than some of these other teams, but for Steelers standards, that's mediocrity. And it's not acceptable here. So, yes, more changes will be happening, both, like I said, personnel-wise, on the field, and from a staffing standpoint. And that's what you got to live with, man, when you put yourself in this scenario, baby.
That's crazy about that Pouncey and DeCastro. I did not know about that.
Absolutely, bro.
I did not know about that at all. All right, dude. All right. Well, yeah, we'll see this offseason, man. Like, there's going to be, like you said, there's going to be some interesting shit.
You would have to make those two moves if Ben is coming back or not.
Right.
The $41 million cap hit, both of those guys more than likely are gone. And if Ben comes back on some type of renegotiated pay cut, one of those guys are probably going to be gone just because of the cap hit. And when you think about,
I don't think it hurts for both though either.
I agree with you. The difference is this: if you do both, and for me personally, I'm more of a fan of both. Yeah. Because then you're just looking at replacing your center. I think that's the big part. Now, obviously, this is what me thinking I'm keeping Matt at guard. Now, you could want to move Matt to right tackle, and then you got to see what the left tackle situation is. Because
is it Banner or Chooks?
Because they've already
talked draft the guy.
Yeah, they already said Al isn't coming back either. Mm-hmm. That's already, they put that out there literally. That was Tuesday, I think it was, when that came out there. So you already know you're replacing left tackle.
They must have watched this Collinsworth highlights he was putting up on that telecast.
Well, and this is the thing, like, we talked about him as well, but what did we say? We say, even though you might need to make some movements here and there, they weren't going to do that. Now, I do think with Al, it was one of those.
Who were you going to get?
Who would you move over there, right? You weren't going to move Chooks over there because obviously Chooks is the right tackle. And then you weren't going to move Filer to left tackle in the middle of a season either. But now you're definitely... You
might be open to that.
Right, but now you're definitely looking at replacing left tackle. That's 100% confirmed. And then from there, guard and center more than likely. Center and right guard more than likely as well. So you're looking at having some type of combination of 3 new starters in that lineup.
You're assuming Dotson's one of them. At right
Dotson
guard.
should be.
Yeah.
To me, I feel like Dotson and Fowler, somehow, some way, that combo has to be up there, whether it's both at guard, whether it's guard and tackle. I don't care. But that's why when we talked about Dotson, I'm like, I love Dotson, but people speak of Dotson in a negative way towards Fowler. And I said Dotson should be spoken of in a negative way towards DeCastro because he's more of a threat to him than Fowler. You watch the tape, Fowler is one of their best offensive linemen, and it showed. And that's why I think he's going to be back at one of those starting spots. I think he will be one of those guys.
Yeah, that's good, man.
But it's going to be interesting, though, man. Like I said, a lot of movement, man.
I don't know, and that's kind of what we talked about last podcast. And that still doesn't even hit the other
free agents.
I do think we get younger on the offensive line. We get the running game going, whether we draft the guy or whatever. I don't know. I like what we're seeing next year, maybe.
This is the thing. You can, and for the people that don't think Ben is good anymore, we're not saying Ben isn't good. Ben is still a good quarterback. You can still win a Super Bowl with Ben. The difference is this. Ben can't lead you to a Super Bowl in terms of him being the guy, because the $41 million cap hit, right? At $41 million, he has to be the guy. He has to be Mahomes. The $41 million cap hit is the highest cap hit in the NFL. Not Breeze, not Rodgers, not Mahomes, not Watson. The highest cap hit in the NFL next year is Ben Roethlisberger. So for him to operate under that cap, he has to produce astronomically. Right now, that's not what he's able to do over a full season. And he's got to do it for an extra regular season game next year because it goes to 17 games instead of 16. Yes, it does.
Really?
17 game regular season, 3 preseason games starting next year. So now you have an additional game. When we already talked about the last 6 games from Ben, he definitely faltered. You look at the first 11 games, I think he had 4 interceptions. The past 6 games, he had 10 interceptions. So you could definitely see his play start to drop towards the end of it. You can still win with him, but you're going to have to get that 41 off so that way you can get him help. You can't fix the O-line in the running game if he has a $41 million cap hit. That's the problem. So for the people that really don't want him, I don't think it's necessarily because of them not thinking he can still play. It's just at that $41 million that for that cap hit, like he's going to have to be the hero. He's going to, the 68 attempts, you're going to see a lot more 45, 50 passing attempts if he's under $41 million because the O-line is going to look very similar to what it is right now. The running back room is going to look very similar to what it is now because you're not going to have the assets to upgrade those spots. So that's the biggest thing with him. But we've seen, Peyton Manning won a Super Bowl and in the words of D'Angelo, Peyton Manning couldn't play dead in a cowboy movie. Like certain guys you can still win with. Nick Foles, he's not a 16 game franchise quarterback. We've seen this multiple times now, right? In Jacksonville and in Chicago. But you can still win a Super Bowl with him in the right scenario. But they could do that because his cap number was nowhere near what it was for Ben's right now. So you could bring in and have certain pieces around him. We saw that defense surrounding Peyton Manning. We saw some of the pieces surrounding Nick Foles in Philly. You can't get those type of pieces with the cap hit being the way it is for Ben. So that's why it's going to be critical that they get something worked out with him, man.
Well, yeah, we'll see how it plays out this offseason.
Yeah. But if they don't, I don't see us being anything better than what we were right now, man.
You don't even, let's say it doesn't. Even with bringing in Dotson, maybe.
How are you going to
drafting some guys? That's what I mean. I think the draft could be big for us.
But this is the thing, right? How many guys are you drafting? It's not like you're drafting a whole new offensive line.
We'd have to hit on the first 3 or 4 rounds.
Yeah, but think about this. Hitting on the first 3 or 4 rounds, we said that you're looking at replacing Pouncey, DeCastro, and your left tackle. First 3 rounds. We already said we got to replace running back, right? We got to upgrade that. Coach Tomlin even went on record and said that the other day in his end of the season press conference. He said, look, the running game was not acceptable. We were dead last. Anytime you're dead last, changes will be made. So you got to get a new running back, where that's free agency, but you can't go free agency if the $41 million cap hit is still there. So that's not going to work. So how do you upgrade the running game? How do you upgrade the rest of the offensive line? And that still doesn't even talk about Mike Hilton and Cam Sutton being gone because of the $41 million. So now you got to replace 2 secondary guys, and potential cap casualty because of the $41 million would be either Joe Hayden or Steven Nelson. So now you got to replace a corner as well. So you could just see how that 41, if he's under that 41, this roster is going to take a bigger hit. That's all I'm getting to. As much as we could believe in Ben, just know it's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse because you're not going to have those people around you.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out, man.
Yeah.
What do we got next?
You don't like talking about Ben in that contract. Well, I could I'm going to say it. Whatever.
Dude, well, here's the thing.
Because
you don't want to hear what I got to say. You don't. I was just being quiet.
No, I'm good.
You don't want to hear what I got to say.
You wanted to play on the 41?
I don't care.
Oh my God.
Because my blood was boiling. I'm like, I think he can still carry it. So that's all. That's why I was just. I'm being quiet here, man. You're making all these good points.
You think he can play on the? You think he's worth $41 million in productivity?
Dude.
Because like I said, that's more than Mahomes. So he would have to outplay Mahomes to justify that. He would have to outplay Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, all of these guys.
I think he could have that type of year next year.
Did he have that type of year this year?
I think he was in the mix for the most part.
No, not in the mix. Did he? Because for him to have the highest, it needs to be clear that he is the guy. So not in the mix. Was he the guy? Was he better than all those guys this year?
I can't. Well, we'd have to break down player by player, but
was he the best quarterback in the NFL?
I couldn't say.
Was he the best player in the NFL then?
I couldn't say that based off last season. He didn't have the best season last year.
That's my point by you, though. No. I respect that. That's growth. I respect that.
Here's my point. Here's my point. And this is actually probably what I wanted to say about whenever I say he's my best quarterback on my list or whatever it is. I still think he has the chance on like a game in, game out basis to be the best guy in the league. So that's what matters to me. So I still think he can do that.
I think that's pretty much where we differ.
Sure. Yeah.
Just from the game in and game out basis, I don't think that he's going to be the best quarterback in this league ever. You know what I mean? Like some people have debated whether throughout his whole career, whether or not he was ever the best quarterback, because obviously he played around some dogs.
He had some of his best seasons, like Brady had the 50 touchdowns.
And that's another big reason why he's never received the MVP vote, because the way the voting works, and I think we might have talked about this before, the 50 voters that vote, they only get one vote. So it's not like they can say, hey, I want to vote for Ben and Peyton Manning. If this is my only vote and Peyton has one of those years, even though Ben balled out, I'm voting for this guy because this is my one vote. So that's another reason why he has never received the MVP vote. Not saying that he hasn't been deserving of consideration, but some of the years where he's up there, it's like you look at the guys who won, you're like, bro, I mean, you're not gonna, let me vote somebody else instead of Brady right here this year when he throws for 50 touchdowns or Mahomes throwing for 50. Like, nah, you're gonna vote that guy.
But I think a lot of us defenders, we consistently see the top 5 seasons year in and year out, and what a lot of it was with the media and everything, in our opinions, was like, yeah, they're putting up these gaudy stats because they throw a lot more attempts based off their offense. You know what I mean? Whereas Ben's attempts were down, you're not going to see those stats, and he was getting injured in and out. So some of the years where he has like the high 20 touchdown seasons, like if he was playing the full gamut of games, if he was passing for like 100 or 150 more attempts, he would have had those stats. Like just from watching on a game in and game out basis, what we're seeing is that level of play from Ben. It's just not getting that type of recognition. I'm just saying where people that support Ben come from. With
Got you. Okay.
In the past.
Understandable, man.
Yeah.
Because like I said, now it's definitely flipped. Now he typically has led the league in passing attempts. At least the past 2 healthy seasons that he's had, he's been one of the higher passing attempt guys. So that's the only reason why it's kind of like that, how you want to spin the argument. When he was on the bad end of not having a ton of attempts, we make it as a good thing. Now he's on the side where he has a ton of attempts, but he has the stats to go with it. How people spin that? Is it more so just the numbers were solely related to the amount of attempts, or was it because of just being effective and being productive from that standpoint? That's going to be the big debate in terms of how people view 7. So
you talking about career wise?
I'm just talking about just in the recent history of him as well, man.
Like are you talking about the attempts like from this year? Going forward.
I'm saying like this year, and then not last year because he was hurt, but the year before that, he still led the league in passing attempts. Then
that's the thing. But we've talked about that. I still saw that as a really good season. That's how you want to spin it and everything.
Well, I look at it
I think he's had great seasons in both ways.
I think he put up nice numbers. I don't think they were great seasons. I think that's the difference. No different than how this last game against the Browns, and this would have been the 2018 season as well against the Broncos, right? And both of those games, what happened? He put up nice stats, right? Gaudy numbers. Both games ended in losses. Both games looked like, hey, man, passed the ball too much. Both games looked like, man, we still had mistakes by 7. But how did he spin it? Man, we moved the ball up and down the field. It's misleading. So to
which Broncos game you talking about?
The James Conner one.
Okay,
and then Ben throws the pick at the end. He's
what was the first one? The first game.
And the first one was the Browns game that just happened.
Okay.
The 500 passing yards, right? On paper, statistically, it looks good. 500 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, and it's like if you watch the tape, you can see in the second half that the Browns decided to do what they say. Look, we're going to trade you yards and time, so you can get these yards, you can get these touchdowns every once in a while. But we're so far ahead that that's going to eat up time, which it did for them. It worked out. But in the end, it's misleading because it makes it look like, he lit these guys up, 500 passing yards. And it's like, you can see how they shifted to what they were going to do once they got up 4 scores as well. So that's the only reason why when we talk about his numbers, I'm like, yes, they looked pretty. But when you actually watch them, it wasn't that same level. When we talk about some of these other elite quarterbacks, these quote unquote top 5 quarterbacks, it's different when you watch them versus when we watch Ben. That's the biggest thing, man.
I agree that Broncos one, the pick at the end was inexcusable, but I think Connor fumbled bad, and
Connor had the one, and Grimble had the one
at the end zone. So I don't know. I thought he had a really good season that year, but that's I guess where we disagree. That's all.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and like I said, it's understandable because we know when you have passion for a player, you're gonna feel like, hey, it's always gonna be glass half full. Versus somebody who can be a little bit more objective, we're gonna look at it from a more objective approach. That's all. Ain't nothing wrong with it, baby.
Sure. What do we got next?
We gotta talk these division rounds, though, right?
Oh, sure.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? We got a couple quarterbacks, couple teams left.
Sure. Good matchups.
There are. In fact, I should have asked you. I was going. I received a gift today.
Really?
Yeah. I got this package. Came on down from Buffalo, New York.
I'm concerned. Yeah, I'm getting concerned. I think fans of the show are getting concerned too here.
I opened up my pack because I haven't went shopping. I haven't purchased anything. I did receive an email though. I received the email. It would have been last week. It said congratulations. I was like, oh word. It was like, man, Buffalo Bills. This drought. They finally have won the division.
They sent it for former players or something.
Alumni.
Yes,
wow. They're alumni. They're Legends community, which I happen to be a part of.
Legends.
That's what I think. That's like the new way of how they're calling their alumni players. They say, Legends.
What do you got to do to get in the Legends community?
I don't know.
Just be up there. You were up there 4 years,
yeah,
right?
I was up there 4 years. They say the same here in Pittsburgh, but I was here in Pittsburgh 4 years. I think it was at both spots the exact same amount of time. That's why I always laugh when they're like, you should be more loyal to Pittsburgh. I'm like, I'm more loyal because I love it here, and y'all paid me great, and we had a ton of success, and I live here. I work here. It's a little different. But I was at the same spot both amount of time. Like, seriously, the difference is, like I said, more money, more winning. But it was the exact same amount of time. In fact, they drafted me, so they like me a little bit more. If we're being real about it. just whenever we're talking about the whole, man, who is your loyalty lie? So it's never a debate with the loyalty, okay?
I think
it's never a debate. But
would you say your heart's a little bit up there though? Like this,
it's never been a debate.
You got a little bit more of the business element.
Yeah,
here.
It's never a debate because for me, that's where I got my start at. When I came out of college,
it hurts.
The Steelers didn't get. This is my thing. The Steelers didn't give me the opportunity. Right? They passed on me for how many rounds? I got drafted in the 6th round, so they had ample opportunity. The Bills were the team that took the chance on me. So of course, there is this. This doesn't happen without them. And it's that simple. I'm like, bro, I got married. My second year in Buffalo, I had a child in Buffalo. Like multiple things, or critical or impactful things happened to me in Buffalo. So of course, I'm always gonna have a heart for them. It's kind of like that childhood sweetheart, the girl that you dated your whole life. Man, this is who you were supposed to marry, and everything was beautiful, but somehow, some way, it didn't work out. And then you meet your dream wife, and y'all get married, and everything is happy ever after. It still doesn't change how you think and feel about the high school sweetheart. It's just, hey, I love where I'm at right now. I love her so much that I'm not going to leave her for you.
New stage in life.
Yeah, it's like I'm not going to leave my wife for you, but you were still very much impactful in my development. So that's how I look at the Bills. It's like, bro, y'all were there at the beginning. Y'all took the chance on me before anyone else did. The little dude who just cut his hair. I had the long hair. I cut my hair before I get drafted. They took that chance on that guy, not Pittsburgh. So of course I'm going to have some feelings up there. But to go back to them, Shout out to them, man. They did send all their alumni the division hats, man. I pulled mine out. It didn't match.
It's a hat? It wasn't a shirt? Okay.
Well, the shirt is coming as well. Because it was like hat size, shirt size. I was like, man, this is dope. I'm going to post something like cool, let y'all know like I appreciate the love. Because obviously it's different. And this is what you heard Charlie talk about. This. He said, man, in Pittsburgh, we don't honor division champs. We don't honor Super Bowl appearances. We honor Super Bowl champions. So it's a different vibe because, hey, in Pittsburgh, you're never going to get, well, not saying never because you never can say never, but that hasn't been something that they have ever done to this point. But for Buffalo, this is the first time that they've had this opportunity to do this in how many years? 20-something plus years? So, yeah, I was like, it was pretty cool. It was a pleasant surprise to see that, I was like, oh, y'all thought of me? I got y'all. But it's a perfect transition because they are one of the big matchups this week in the division round, man.
Yeah.
And they're going against who? One of our division rival, our biggest foe, the Baltimore Ravens.
This is just a tough weekend for me, dude.
It is for you, man.
It's tough.
There are no good scenarios.
The Bills, such a neutral team in general my whole life. Now I've become like one of my biggest foes.
Yep. Because if they win, that validates Josh Allen. It validates.
I got nothing against Allen. I got nothing against Allen.
We know.
I think it's more the Bills at this point where I'm just like, I do not want to see them win. I really don't.
And they've been one of the most humble teams. I think they're your new Titans right now. That the way you felt about the Titans is how you feel about the Bills. Even though I think the Bills are a better team than the Titans.
Oh, definitely.
I do think that, but it's just I feel like that's how you're viewing.
I don't think the Titans anymore because, like I said, I'm over the Tannehill hate because what he's kind of proved over these past couple years.
Even in the playoffs,
he belongs. He belongs.
Yes.
And then Derrick Henry definitely showed like his first 3 or 4 years was just kind of like, I don't know, maybe it was due to coaching or whatever it was because he's the best running back in the league now. So they're a team. They're definitely a team. Yeah. With the Bills, you can see they're a team too.
The flip side
they played good all year.
The flip side would be the Ravens going to the
division rivals. Yeah,
it's a lose-lose for you.
It's tough.
I can see. If you had to pick though, what's the lesser of two evils?
Oh man, I don't know.
Buffalo, right? You wouldn't want the Ravens to win, would you? You're not a Baltimore guy.
Here's the thing. Once I get to this point, the Steelers are out. I've talked about this in the past. I don't go all out rooting for a team to lose or anything like that.
This is the Ravens. This is not just a team. This is the Ravens.
You let the chips fall as they may. You let the better team win. That's all.
This is the Ravens.
That's all. You look for good football. You look for exciting football. That's it.
So they're not getting clapped next week. That's not how you
who the Ravens?
The Ravens
against the Bills? No, that's gonna be a good game. That's gonna be a really good game. I think it's gonna come down to the wire.
I think so as well. I think whoever survives that, because I think it's definitely going to be a bloodbath. Whoever survives it,
they got a good chance of beating the Chiefs. Let's just say I'm picking the Chiefs to beat the Browns.
My problem is this. I think whoever comes out of this matchup between Bills and Ravens, I think because of how taxing this game is going to be both physically and I think it will be a higher scoring affair, I don't know what the state of that team is going to look like the following week from a health standpoint.
It could be one of those things where you just keep rolling, though. You take that momentum. But, you're right. Maybe it is going to be a little too much.
Different. You look at that Ravens-Titans like, dude, that was a heavyweight slugfest. Like, you don't just walk up out of there. That's why I was glad when we talked about here in Pittsburgh. It was like, man, we didn't want either of those because the assumption was, man, that's going to be a very physical game. And going forward, it could hold you back some. So that's kind of how I look at this game. But I love the storylines. I think it's a great scenario because, number one, you're going to end – whether it's Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, the whole narrative of they can't win big games. They've already
I think they already have. I think they have.
But this is even it goes to a next level when you can get your team to an AFC championship game. That is huge. For either of these quarterbacks, Josh Allen, who's in line for a mega deal this offseason, the Bills have already put those reports out there that they want to make him one of the highest paid quarterbacks. Obviously, he won't be the highest paid because of Mahomes, but they want to have him in that same type of category of being one of the highest paid guys. And then Lamar's in a similar situation as well, where his contract is going to be time for him to get an extension. Big for both of these guys. Big in terms of this is both of their first time winning playoff games this year. So how do they respond the following week? Or are they going to have a letdown? Are they going to rise to the occasion? Or are they going to elevate their play? And then for both organizations, can the Ravens continue on under Lamar with Harbaugh? Can they have playoff success with those guys? Similar situation in Buffalo. Hey, can McDermott lead these guys through the playoffs, or are they a one and done team? Are they they won a wild card game, but they can't go further?
Hold on. I know I get all these storylines, but I'm really not thinking this because of how young these guys are, though.
Right, but think about
I'm not going to necessarily be saying all this.
But this was my thing, right? How many people? You said how young they are. we're saying Lamar Jackson couldn't win a playoff game because of 2 playoff performances, and one where realistically the offense wasn't even designed for him. It was a Joe Flacco thing, and then it turned into a Lamar, and then it became, we made it into the playoffs somehow. And they would say that Lamar couldn't win in the playoffs because of 2 performances.
I think that as a statement is false, but I don't think it's wrong to say, let's wait and see how these guys do.
But no. It wasn't a let's wait and see.
I know. I think it's wrong for saying that label, especially. I think it's wrong for saying that, especially how young those guys are.
But you see why now when you talk about, man, that narrative seems a little rough.
It's crazy,
dude. That was literally what they were saying about both of these guys a week ago. Going into that game against the Titans, people were over here, well, Lamar hasn't shown he can win in the playoffs. Lamar can't win the big one. You seen what happens when he plays the Chiefs? Man, you saw what happened last year in the playoffs. So versus Chargers in the playoffs. It's like, bro, the Chargers game, we know the factors in that. And that's why I'm always big on detail, not just numbers, because statistically, yeah, he's technically 0-2 in the playoffs at the time. But we all know, anybody that watched Lamar's first year with the Ravens know that offense was nowhere near designed for him the way it is in year 2. The personnel surrounding him in year 1 was nowhere near the personnel surrounding him in year 2. You want to throw that second loss on him? Without a doubt, 100%.
Yeah, that first game, I don't even think anyone was expecting them to win that.
Right, but everyone, when they wanted to knock Lamar, especially after they lost last year in the playoffs, that's what they said. 0-2 in the playoffs. 0-2 in the playoffs. Can't win the big game. Anytime they play the Chiefs, the only big games they lost have been to the Chiefs and the Titans. We haven't seen them lose any other big games. We've seen them blow teams out in big games. We never seen them get beat in big games. So that's why for me, I was always like, that narrative isn't accurate, but that was the thing. So those are the storylines surrounding these guys. But now they got a situation to, like I said, change that, continue to win. Either one of those guys. It's a big opportunity, man.
Yeah, I think whoever loses, I don't think anyone should go to those extremes.
I agree.
Because I do think they proved they just won playoff games in pretty good fashion. So I think that's enough for me in terms of their development. Now, this one, it's like who wants to be elevated now to like kind of that next level.
And because I think this is the perfect matchup for both teams, is going to be respected as well. It's not like the Chiefs, for example, right? They're playing the Browns. If the Chiefs beat the Browns, they're going to say, well, you kind of got lucky with that matchup. It was supposed to have been, this team instead, but it worked out where you drew this team. Bills or Ravens, whoever wins that game, neither party can sit over here and say, well, you got lucky with that matchup. It's going to be, you earned that. Like, Bills, we fully respect you. Y'all are legit.
Bills have the better reputation for this specific season. But the Ravens are really hot.
Yes,
and they kind of have the legacy brand to them attached to them. So yeah, I don't think this game's a joke at all for either.
Who you got winning it, man?
I'm picking the Ravens, dude.
Okay.
I'm picking the Ravens. I do think it's going to come down to the wire. I think Lamar's going to be able to run on this Bills defense.
Okay.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. They'll be able to control the clock a little bit.
Yeah.
The Bills' strength, you would say probably in their defense is their pass coverage or secondary.
Yeah, secondary.
But that's not necessarily what the Ravens specialize in, so I think that will neutralize it a little bit. And you've probably seen way more Bills games than anybody here that's listening, or just even me myself. Like their rush defense has been one of their problems this year.
It definitely has, man.
I think the interesting matchup is for sure the Bills offense versus the Ravens defense. It's like good on good there.
Yeah.
Bills like to throw the ball. Ravens have been really good in the secondary. So we'll see, man. I'm just leaning Ravens a little bit.
I like it, man. So for me, man, obviously I'm going to lean Buffalo here. I think the biggest difference is this. Even though the Bills have struggled with their rush defense, I do think a lot of it was related to the injuries that they dealt with throughout the year, especially at the linebacker spot. They were similar to us in terms of Devin Bush going down. They dealt with Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano going down at various times throughout the year. Both of these guys are back and they are healthy. I do think that they're going to play a lot better versus Lamar Jackson because with Lamar, it's a different style of running. It's going to be the zone read stuff, but it's more so, do you have great athletes at linebacker? And Edmonds and Milano are great athletes.
So you think they're going to sell out on
Whereas like versus the Colts, they struggle versus that because the Colts aren't trying to trick you. The Colts are power running. They got guys up front that blow you off the ball. Jonathan Taylor, you saw him like, you see when you're playing him, we're not trying to surprise you. We're going to hit you in the mouth. Baltimore's more so we're going to surprise you. I think that will bode well for the Bills because they have that type of athletic secondary, and especially at the linebacker spot, they got guys who could play in space. Offensively, though, for the Bills, that's going to be exciting. Like you said, when you talk about Marlon Humphreys, you talk about you talk about Marcus Peters, they got some guys on that back, and that's going to be the exciting part because obviously for the Bills, you got 2 All-Pros in Diggs and Cole Beasley out there as well, and John Brown, who's healthy now. So that adds another element, and then the rookie Gabriel Davis has done some really impressive things. It's going to be interesting. I think this is a really good match for both teams. I think it's going to be a high scoring affair. I have it 30-28.
Okay.
I think the Bills find a way to pull it out at the end, but it's going to be one of them back and forth games. To me, that game and Bucs and Saints, I think, are going to be the best on the docket this weekend, man. Like, we could be wrong, but to me, those are the ones I'm most looking forward to, baby.
Hell yeah.
Like, they're going to be excited, man.
You want to get into Bucs and Saints?
We might as well, man. Because I feel like, depending on how you look at it, right? If you're an NFC guy, if you're a Brady guy, you look at that as like the marquee matchup. Yeah. Obviously, I got ties to Buffalo, so that's why I view Bills-Ravens as the marquee matchup.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think those two are definitely the top two matchups this weekend, man.
What are you thinking?
I don't think Brady loses 3 times to Breeze in 1 year. I'm holding that factor. You know what I mean? That's kind of my saving grace. Obviously, the Saints are a really good team. Michael Thomas came back. He looked good. Mm-hmm. They're healthy. They can run the ball. They play great defense. They're good to go. And they already have the advantage of having beaten this team 2 times now. I do know that it's very difficult to beat a team 3 times. That's my only thing. Beating a team 3 times in 1 year typically doesn't happen. And the Bucs have been playing a lot better lately. Yep. AB has come along. Mike Evans and Tom Brady have built a rapport. Obviously, Godwin, they're running the ball a lot loaded. Better. They are. They are. It's crazy. The defense looks good. I'm sitting here like, when did y'all start playing as well? When did this happen? Huh? This wasn't the team that we talked about 2 months ago. Okay, they look legit.
And they got housed by the Saints.
Yes. So that's the only reason why I'm like, this is the same way we talk about the Ravens being a hot team. The Ravens just at the right time clicking. The Bucs are very similar. The Bucs, the last 4 weeks of the regular season, they got hot, and we saw what they looked like. Granted, it was against the Washington football team with no Alex Smith, but still, they made the plays necessary, and they made sure they took care of business. So that's why, for me, I'm leaning Bucs. I feel like somehow, some way, they get it done.
Yeah, I'm leaning Bucs too. It's just one of those things with me. You don't bet against Brady, and I think in their first 2 matchups, the first one was literally the opening day.
Yeah, yes.
Where
no
you just
season.
You just saw Brady was off with his receivers. Mm-hmm. Things weren't clicking, whereas the Saints had a lot more continuity there.
Correct.
The second time, was that AB's first game?
Yes, it was. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I don't know how much that played into it, but they're a
AB's
different.
First couple of games, they played a lot because you could see the offense. They were trying to figure out how to use him. They would first try to use him for gadgets, reverses, screens, stuff like that. Then it was, okay, we're just going to take occasional shots downfield with him, but it just looked out of whack. That was the biggest issue.
And so with that second one, I just don't think they're the same team right now.
Yeah.
Because they're firing on all cylinders. Like Gronk looks good.
Gronk looks really good.
Cameron Brate is good. You talk about the 3 receivers, Leonard Fournette. They're pretty stacked on offense.
Their defense is nice.
If you want to
defense.
Yeah, their defense is good too. If you want to, I guess, pick a hole, it would be the secondary.
Yeah.
They let that dude go off against them last week with Washington. So that's the one consistent thing with the Saints is Breeze.
And we do know that Breeze has weapons outside.
Breeze has had good games against them. Because if you're going to say just as a total team, I think Saints have it all from defense and offense standpoint. Yeah. I'm just going to bet on Brady, dude. I'm going to bet on Brady in that offense and AB, and I think Bucs defense will do enough. And then you're just hoping, man, maybe Breeze won't have his best game.
I like it.
That's what I'm thinking with the Bucs.
Score prediction?
I don't, dude. I'm not getting that emotional or tied into it.
Oh, you're not? Okay,
I'm just picking teams, dude.
All right. We'll just pick teams then. Okay.
Do you want to?
No. We just pick teams. Because the only reason I asked because I gave a prediction for the Bills.
You did for the Bills. That's what I mean. I can go backwards and say Ravens-Bills, give my score.
Sure, let's do it then. Yeah, what you got?
Man, all right. Would you?
Maybe it is safer to just pick who wins. Let's play it safe.
You sure?
Just pick who wins.
Why?
We don't need to put points on it.
Why?
I don't know.
I'll do it.
It's all right, let's do it then, man. Throw the points out there.
I don't know if I want to.
Jesus.
So here's what I could do for. What about this? Hold on. Which would you prefer? If I made you a separate Bills vid for yourself, predicting the score, and then we have our own the one vid where we're going back and forth about the actual team picks.
I would prefer to not have scores because then I got a little leeway. It don't matter how they win; they can just win.
Okay.
I'm over here predicting 30s and stuff. It could be a 14-10 affair. You never know.
Okay, it's up to you.
Let me get a little grace. Yeah.
It's up to you.
No score predictions. Let's just go with it.
Okay. You sure?
Nah, bump that yellow. Give me score predictions. Let's ride.
You sure?
Absolutely.
All right. What'd you say for Ravens Bills?
I think I said 30-28 Bills. Who'd you have?
I'll flip that. I'm gonna say 30-27 Ravens.
Okay, I like it.
And then
Saints Bucs. I'll go Bucs 34, Saints 31.
Oh, high scoring. I'm saying 20. I'm saying 27. All right. Yeah, it might be. I'm saying 28-27. 1-point game. Somehow.
For me, I don't think the Bucs win a low-scoring game against the Saints. I think that they're going to have to get this thing into a little bit of a shootout.
Okay, so we got those 2 games. We got 2 more.
All right. Browns Chiefs. This is interesting because honestly, the more I think about it,
you could talk yourself into
you
it.
could because
I don't see it.
What do the Browns do well? They run the ball, they control the clock. They are very physical.
No way.
My issue is this: their secondary. Now, granted, they're going to have Denzel Ward and Kevin Johnson are supposed to be coming back, so they're going to get their corners back. That's huge for them. I just don't think that's enough, though. I don't think it's enough. And I understand the whole narrative of, man, they can control the clock, they can run, they can get 3 scores, long drives. But we've seen that against this team before. We've seen the Raiders control the clock and really keep them off the field until the last quarter with a minute or 2 left, and they still find a way to win. We saw the Texans go up, I think it was 28 or it was 21 zip on them last year in the playoffs. We saw them come back out of that. We saw the Titans go up on them double-digit scores as well. And we know the Titans last year were a ground and pound control the clock team, and they found a way to come back. To me, even though I think the Browns can do a good job of playing the slow game, taking the air out the clock, taking the air out the ball, run it, play action pass.
It's Chiefs defense, you could run on them.
You can. But I don't see this Browns defense being able to stop Mahomes' offense. And at best case, you talk about those 3 style of long drives, that's only 21 points. I think you're going to need more than 21 to beat this Chiefs team. So, yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. If you play this out 10 times, 100 times, Chiefs and Mahomes win like 95 to 99% of the time. And that's even with them playing bad. Right. So if you're the Browns...
Is this the one, though? That's what you got, because the Browns are hot. They have momentum.
Here's my thing. They could be playing bad, and Mahomes could come back. Because I don't think they're going to be having the turnovers or mistakes that we did in the first half. And you could even tell in our game we were the better team.
Correct.
So, like, if the Chiefs... Even if
4 turnovers, and we still made it a one-possession game in the second half, or in the fourth quarter.
And giving them 7 points, So I don't think... they could have a couple picks. They could be playing bad in the first half, even 3 quarters.
And we saw them do that against a potential playoff team in the Miami Dolphins.
They could,
and they still found a way. The worst quarter we've ever seen from Mahomes, the worst half we've ever seen. And they still, at times, were about to blow the Dolphins out in the second half.
So I think if you're the Browns, you're hoping for that so that you have a chance. But even with that, you still have a really good chance to lose. So it's like you gotta be playing perfect here. Everything needs to be going perfect. Everything needs to be going your way, and I'm not betting on that at all. I'm betting on Mahomes, and the Chiefs win in this game.
Yeah, and for me, I had my hot pick last week when I went Rams over. When I went Rams over,
dude, you should have seen all the comments on TikTok.
Who did Rams beat? It was my goodness,
Seattle,
yeah. And everybody was like, "Yo, you're crazy," and I was like, "Yo, I saw it. I was like, yo, their defense, the way they're playing, Seahawks railing a little bit." And I was about to talk myself into that with this Browns and Chiefs. I said, I just can't do that one. I can't do it. As much as I would love to, because I can see it. Like I said, I can see it happen. I can see the scenario. Like I said, that takes a perfect case for them to win. And I don't think they're that lucky. I don't think they're that lucky, man. So unfortunately, I have the Browns getting clapped.
Yeah. Clapped. Not a close game.
I have them getting clapped.
20 points.
Getting clapped. Yep.
30-10. What is it?
27-13.
I retired that score, dude. I'm not saying it again. You could say it.
I'm getting clapped. 27-13, baby. All right. So, yeah.
All right.
Boom.
I'll say like 31-10.
I like it.
Win. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
All right, you ready for the fourth and final one, man?
Sure.
We got the LA Rams versus Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers.
Another good matchup.
It is. It's good as long as my man Aaron Donald is good to go. We obviously he missed the second half of that game last week with a rib injury. So depending on his full availability, because he was terrorizing when he was out there. That first half, he looked great. He looked like Aaron Donald, the best player on the planet. Like that's what he looked like. And then obviously he got hurt, couldn't play in the second half, but they still were able to create havoc and still make plays out there defensively. Now, obviously they got Jalen Ramsey. We know that that's going to be get your popcorn between him and Devontae Adams. I am excited for that matchup there. That is good on good. That is 5-star, baby.
How you leaning? Who wins?
If Aaron Donald is healthy, give me Jalen Ramsey.
Whoa.
If Aaron Donald is not healthy, give me Davante Adams. Because if Aaron Rodgers has time, I don't care how great of a corner you are, you're not covering Davante Adams for 5-6 seconds.
That's what I'm thinking.
That's not happening.
He's just on one of those years.
But when Aaron Donald has been healthy, we've seen Jalen Ramsey take out some guys. We know what he is capable of once he has that rush. As long as the rush is there, I think Jalen's fine because Jalen is very handsy. He's long, and he can run with these guys. That's the difference, man. When you matching up with a guy like Davante Adams, very similar to a guy like a Julio or a DeAndre Hopkins, right? Big guys that can run. So you got to, number one, have the size. He has that. Jalen has size. Number two, you got to be able to run. Jalen is a great athlete. I mean, a lot of these corners, man, they are great technicians, but they don't have necessarily the top end speed or they can't do everything to match up with these guys. Jalen, if you talk about creating the perfect corner, Jalen will be one of those guys that you want. Long, athletic, can run, doesn't mind getting physical in terms of within those 5 yards. So he can do that. But it only works if you got the rush with it. Because after that window is over, man, Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams, they own one right now. They're on one. So it's going to be exciting. To me, the energy I have for this is kind of when Jalen was with the Jags and it was Jalen versus AB. And we had Ben and you're like, man, all right, if the rush is getting there, Jalen can go off. If the rush don't get there, we could cook them. What's it going to be? And we saw, I mean, when you watch the games in all three of those scenarios, when the rush wasn't there, we cooked them. When the rush was there, he got his money's worth. He got off. You know what I mean? So it's going to be one of those type of things from my perspective, but I'm excited either way. But with all that being said, I think I shall go with the Packers. I'm going Packers.
I'm thinking Packers too.
I don't believe in golf. I don't.
Yeah, I think it's one of those scenarios, kind of like the
Browns.
It's kind of like the Browns Chiefs a little bit.
Yeah, and golf has 9 fingers. Remember, his thumb is. He wasn't even supposed to play last week. No. The only reason he got out there was because the other quarterback gets hurt like right at the beginning. It was nuts.
Yeah,
and then from there he's like, yo, this dude he couldn't even tie his shoes pregame. He's having to lead these guys out there. That's not going to get it done in Green Bay. It's just not.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What's interesting is even if Donald is, 50%, 60, 70, 80%, Floyd might have a game though without
Floyd been balling out, man.
Bakhtiari because he got that ACL. Yes. So that might be something in play. I think it's the Rams because they have a really great defense. Now, granted, hopefully Donald plays for them.
Right. Because that changed everything. If Donald's not out there, everything we just said flips. Because now you can't take advantage of that offensive line.
Yeah, great defense versus great offense with the Packers. Aaron Jones, Davante Adams. Aaron Rodgers, that tight end's been playing pretty well too. Their second and third receivers have been playing well. That's always been like the biggest knock over these past 2 or 3 years about Rodgers is like second and third receivers, but they've been playing well this season. So I mean, then it goes to the Rams offense. They're pretty good running the ball, Cam Akers and everything, but do you really believe in Jared Goff like that?
And you got good receivers in terms of Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp. That's going to be the thing also because he left last game as well. So what's his health like? Because if he's not out there, now it's even more pressure put on Goff because Woods is a great number 2, but we said he's not a number 1 guy. He's not going to be able to just take over and pull that type of slack. That's not in his wheelhouse right now. So if Kupp isn't available, that puts even more of a strain on them. Or if he's not up to 100%.
Yeah. So, I'm leaning Packers, too. Aaron Rodgers. I think Davante Adams does have a good game as well. Yeah. So, that's what I'm thinking.
I think for score, I actually don't think this is a high-scoring affair. I think it's a 21... I'll go 21-10. I'll go 21-10.
Okay.
Packers. 21-10 Packers. Clarify that.
I'll say 23-17.
I like who?
Packers. Okay, yeah, okay. I'm going Packers. All right. That's what I'm thinking.
I like it. I like it. I respect that, man.
We got anything else?
I think that's it. I feel like we covered a ton. Yeah. I can't see how long this podcast was. I feel like it was long enough though. Feels good. There's a lot of info. Yeah, man. So with that being said, enjoy the content. Shout out to everybody that's been tuning in. Until next time.
Peace.